Chicago is now having a hiring freeze. Thank you, Hyena. I'm definitely going to be reading that super chat shortly. Chicago is now enacting a hiring freeze. But before we get to the hiring freeze, they also, in the name of the police officers, not the police officers, but the detectives and maybe the prosecutors, had to issue out $50 million along with this budget deficit. Check it out.
Chicago police ordered to pay $50 million to a man who says he was framed in a murder case.
Yeah, he'd already been declared innocent years ago. Nate Rogers spoke to him tonight. Nate.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. And down, Marcel Brown was sentenced to 35 years in prison for a murder he did not commit. He actually served 10 of those years before he was exonerated. His attorneys tell us that he was inside an interrogation room for more than 30 hours. He was banned from receiving legal...
Did he say he served 10 of the years? Let me rewind that real quick. He served 10 of his 35 years?
Before he was exonerated. For a murder he did not commit. He actually served 10 of those years before he was exonerated. His attorneys tell us that he was inside an interrogation room
out to my
for
girl,
more than
Mika.
30 hours. He was banned from receiving legal counsel. He was given little food, and they say his phone call requests to family were denied.
This jury saw what happened in that interrogation room as mental coercion, psychological coercion. His constitutional rights were violated.
In August of 2008, Paris Jackson died after being shot multiple times here at Amundsen Park. Marcel Brown, 18 at the time, was arrested and charged as the getaway driver.
He goes over to the park to pick up his sister. People start shooting. They accuse Marcel of being an accomplice, having been involved in the shooting. He had nothing to do with it.
Brown's lawsuit against the city, CPD, and an assistant state's attorney claims he was coerced into confessing because prosecutors wanted to quickly close the case with, quote, minimum effort. His interrogation all on video.
I was just a kid. I felt like a slave. They put me in a den full of lions.
Brown left the Dirksen Federal Building today after a jury awarded him $50 million in punitive damages, joined by...
Police officers going to get half of that. That's why the police is so happy. You see them, not the police officers, the lawyers. Look at the lawyer on the left side. Look at how he walking.
After a jury awarded him $50 million.
They so excited. They so excited. I'm so excited. You don't see nobody with no bow ties on over there. Them is straight double knot Windsor ties going down. Expensive shirts. They gave him an expensive shirt, an expensive suit, an expensive tie. They laced him up. That's all going to come out of the award money. He going to probably see 20 of that. The other 30 is going to go to the lawyers for expenses, getting him out of jail, legal fees, and for him signing the thing of saying that he wanted to get out of jail. But that boy just so happy to get out of jail. I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. He had to spend 10 years of his life. He ain't even, well, he not 30 yet, but he basically gave up his whole 20s for something that he didn't do.
In punitive damages, joined by family, Brown says his mother was his rock through the process.
She had more faith than me sometimes, so when I ever felt down, I talked to God. When I couldn't talk to him, I looked to her.
Attorneys say it's one of the first wrongful conviction cases to go to trial after state law changed, where murder interrogations have to be videotaped.
This $50 million verdict ought to be a wake-up call and a message to Mayor Johnson and Superintendent Snelling that it is time to get a grip on the way the Chicago Police Department is conducting its interrogations.
Listen, he don't deserve that. He should have never been convicted. I don't think that it has, well, the prosecutors, all of them needs to be held accountable for their actions. But they got insurance. The problem with this situation that's going to come afterwards, because we can all talk about what happened and all of that stuff, and I think that the police officers or his lawyers has already proved what happened was a tragedy. But here's the problem. What you going to do with that 50 M's or probably 20, 25 M's? What you going to do with that 20, 25 M's, fam? Don't go out here stunting. If you see this video, if one of your friends seen this video, and they said, Anton talked about you on the Millionaire Morning Show, let me give you a piece of advice before we get into Chicago's budget deficit. Don't go out here stunting. Don't be impressing these hoes. Don't automatically run out and get married. Don't go out and have no children. Don't buy nothing. Move out of the hood. Don't go and get your homies. Don't go party. Don't go to the club. Don't go to the casino. Don't do nothing. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Just get out of there. Go to Arkansas. Go to South Dakota. Go to North Dakota. Go to Charlotte. Go somewhere where you don't know nobody. Where everybody knows your name. Get out of there. Before you get that check, change your name and run away. Don't go get you an Instagram baddie. Don't go do the Central Park 5. Don't do none of that. Get out of there. Don't make no new friends. Don't tell nobody you get into it. Get off the news. Don't do nothing. That's my advice to you. As a young bull, you probably still got the mindset of a 20-year-old because he had to spend his first 10 years going into his 20s in prison. Don't disappear, bro. You don't have no friends. You did that prison term by yourself. By yourself. Take mama, be gone. You, mama, gone. I'm telling you, that money gonna go faster than you think that it's gonna go. I interviewed a dude on my platform. I forgot what his name was, but he was wrongly convicted and he got to pay out too. Get out of there, big dog. But anyways, glad that he's free. In addition to that, Chicago, as illustrated last week, is dealing with a $982 million upcoming budget shortfall.
Well, we're talking about football and tailgating this fall. Chicago City Council members are facing a difficult challenge: how to fill a nearly $1 billion budget deficit. So joining me now is the City of Chicago Budget Director, Annette Guzman. Annette, thank you so much for your time this morning.
You're welcome. Good morning.
So this is
somebody get Annette on the phone and get her over here so I can interview her on the Millionaire Morning Show, please. Thank you.
Big one. The city is $982 billion in the hole, and you have said that everything is on the table to eliminate this shortfall. And again, I want to repeat that. Everything is on the table to eliminate this shortfall. What does that mean for the city?
It means that we're looking not only at, what new revenues or increased revenues that the city can bring in to support the operations, but also, taking a really hard look at, our expenditures. Right now, though we are recovering and really moving past the pandemic, our expenditures are rising at a faster rate than our revenues are. And so we have to take a good look at what are the services we're providing, what are the operations that we may no longer be able to provide without increased revenues.
Are we talking about property tax increases here? Is that one of the options?
Property tax is one of the easiest ways for the city to raise revenue, and frankly, for most municipalities to raise revenues, it's one of the largest tools that we have. And so it is something that we're looking at, but I can tell you that, property tax increases are felt differently depending upon where you live in the city. And so
Translation. This year, they got $250 million budget shortfall. We all know that the migrant crisis, bad spending, bad fiscal responsibility. Brandon Johnson was never the person for the job. I warned y'all when y'all was voting him in the first place. That's number one. Number two, they got an upcoming in 2025. They're already projecting. And so if they're projecting it, you know that they're already short. They short on their projections because they always project too low and they don't actually project an accurate number of what the budget shortfall is going to be. In 2025, the upcoming fiscal year, they're facing a $982 million, almost $1 billion budget shortfall. And what did I tell y'all was going to happen? They pass it on to you. That's not a they problem. That's a you problem. And so instead of her answering the question directly and saying, yeah, we're going to have to raise property taxes in order to fill these holes in the budget so that y'all can continue to pay for the migrant crisis, and we don't know how to manage the city effectively, and we still not giving y'all any better services. Instead of them saying that, right, because they want to push the Chicago Bears out, they want to get rid of businesses, the Miracle Mile and all of that stuff is got a 40 to 50% vacancy rate. Instead of them becoming more business friendly and making the adjustments, guess who's going to pay for it? Chicago has some of the most egregious property taxes in the United States of America, and they're going to raise them again. The fastest way for them to fill their budget shortfall, ain't no haircuts, ain't nobody getting laid off, ain't none of that. They are going to raise property taxes on you again. Again. How y'all feel about that? Everybody from Chicago that be mad that I be calling it out and saying what's really happening and bringing y'all the news and holding them accountable, you mad at me or you mad at them? You mad at me or you mad at them? I'm just wondering. Because, see, you can come in here and you can complain in the chat. You don't show up at City Hall and complain about the fact that they're about to raise your property taxes again. They already raised them this year. They're going to raise them again, and then they're going to raise them again, and then they're going to raise them again because they haven't solved for the fundamental problem as to why they got a budget shortfall in the first place. Before you know it, you're going to be paying more than triple what you're paying in property taxes today, and y'all going to be losing your homes all because of mismanagement of the city, and y'all voted them in. And you voted them. Don't run. Don't run. Stick around. It's going to get worse before it get better.
We want to be really mindful and careful about which revenues we are seeking to ask, the city residents to contribute to before we pull those levers.
I was just going to say, as a Cook County resident, boy, we got hit really hard with this last assessment. And as you said, it is impacting different communities in very different ways and really terrible ways, I'm going to add personally. Let's talk about city services. I know that's something that you're going to look at. If city services are cut, Annette, how will that impact residents?
We are looking to, make sure that we are able to provide the services that we are mandated by law to provide.
But they're not going to provide you good service or exceptional service. They're going to do the minimum possible in order to skate by in city services.
Residents pay us to provide them, and we're trying to do the most that we can to ensure that we aren't impacting those services that residents need the most, universally. So, we'll be looking at everything that we currently provide through programming, through outreach, through everything to ensure that, we are impacting residents as little as possible.
Let me pivot for a second and tell y'all what their first line item is and their first course of action is in Chicago in order to try to stem the bleeding in city services and the fact that they got this huge budget shortfall, and then a bigger one that's 3 times as much next year.
Now to breaking news at City Hall. Mayor Brandon Johnson is out with part of a plan to make up for a nearly $1 billion budget shortfall for next year.
Sabrina Franza is in the newsroom with what is at the top of his list. Sabrina?
Jim Murray, number 1 is a hiring freeze. The city also wants stringent limitations on non-essential travel and some overtime expenses.
What traveling are we doing based on this significant budget gap? Why is that just now being discussed when we're going to be starting budget hearings in a matter of weeks? What I hear more and more in my community is, I don't want to see a massive property tax increase.
When the city first announced the budget gap late last month, Mayor Brandon Johnson neither confirmed nor denied that he would consider a property tax increase, though that was a promise that he ran on in his race for mayor and something he touted during his first year in office. He did not say how he planned to close the budget gap at the time. Right now, the city is looking at an almost $23 million deficit at the end of this fiscal year, in addition to a $982 million shortfall in 2025. Previously, the city has credited those numbers to drops in tax revenue. 2025 also marks the end of COVID relief money, which the city had been benefiting from for years.
Well, I think it's important that the city looks for every resource to make sure that we balance the budget without sacrificing important services for the city and especially not burdening working class families across the city that are already struggling to make ends meet.
By way of overtime costs, the city says it would not consider overtime cuts to public safety operations. Staff in Chicago public schools have already raised red flags about open positions that the city would not fill because of a hiring freeze, though it's unclear what other agencies will be affected. We're going to keep digging into this, and we'll have more information on the CBS News at 10 p.m.
So Chicago has now enacted a hiring freeze. They won't be hiring any more police officers. They're not going to hire no administrators, no EMT workers, no firefighters, no nothing. They are already down over 2,000 police officers from what adequate staffing is supposed to be. They are losing revenue. Property taxes is going out the window. It's going up, and then revenue is going down. Also, Chicago leaders, I just want to also mention this. They gave themselves a raise last year. Chicago leaders gave themselves a raise last year. Property taxes went up in Cook County. Everything is bad. Everything is bad. Please, please don't tell me not to report on the news, because I am absolutely going to bring to the forefront what's happening in these cities around the country. I'm so glad that we operating at a surplus here in Detroit. I'm so glad that we got so many buildings going on, that we have a very low vacancy rate of retail. They just opened up the new Rihanna Savage Fenty store down the street. They got new restaurants popping up. San Morello, I'll probably be there this afternoon. Such a great place to be in, a good time to be here. And shout out to the people that I met over the weekend. I was sitting in the bar. Was that Sunday? It was Saturday. Shout out to the people Saturday, because, you know, I remember that Michigan lost the game. But shout out to the people on Saturday that was like, yo, we visiting from Chicago. Like, y'all not going to see y'all on team? No. Okay, cool. Come and visit. Come hang out. Just don't vote the same way that y'all was voting back when y'all was in Chicago, all right?